Welcome back to AVAIYA, Lisa.
Thank you so much for inviting me back.
It's always great to have you. And here we are again talking about codependency.
We have to. It's an epidemic.
It certainly is. So let's dive in right there. So given that we're talking about approval seeking today, why is it that codependents seek approval from others?
In my humble opinion, I think it's because so many of us never got enough approval or validation or nurturing when we were children. Children, in order to identify psychologically with a self, to anchor themselves to a self, they needed healthy mirroring. And so oftentimes codependency is tied to childhood emotional neglect, or being raised in an alcoholic home, or being raised by a narcissistic parent, or just being raised in a home where there are lots of kids and you're lost in the numbers, right? Or you're raised by parents who think they really are doing a good enough job by putting food on the table and washing your clothes and making sure that you get medical care. There are a lot of people out there that don't understand the importance of healthy mirroring. And so you can develop codependency from, very innocent ways, but also more malevolent ways. So it's important that we check ourselves and ask ourselves, wait, am I doing that to seek approval? Do I feel good enough? And in doing that for my friend, am I dishonoring myself so that she likes me or she invites me to that dinner party? Like, am I seeking approval? It really does go back to us and asking ourselves, wait, am I doing that? And that will give you like a snapshot of where you really need to work. And then you can go back into your childhood and ask yourself, wait, why do I do that? So it's the beginning of the awakening process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And I'm sure so many people watching can relate to wanting that external, approval outside of just ourselves. So how about boundaries? Why is it so hard for us as codependents to set boundaries?
Yeah, it's very difficult for us to set boundaries when you don't feel like you have a healthy sense. It's sort of like, how do you lock a door to a house that you don't own? Right? Or how do you have a gate put up around a house that you don't own or you can't name? You don't know where your address is. So having a self is like knowing where your address is or knowing where your zip code is. This is who I am, right? And how do you know who you are? Well, you know who you are by doing the inner child work, but also being able to identify, who am I? What do I think? What do I need?
So how about boundaries? This is a big conversation as it relates to codependency. Why is it so darn difficult sometimes to set boundaries when we're codependent?
I think it's always difficult to set boundaries when you're codependent. I think it's difficult to set boundaries even if you're a non-codependent person. You're afraid to hurt someone else's feelings by saying no. But when you understand that codependency is like this loss of selfhood, so I don't know who I am, right? So I haven't been able to psychologically form this healthy sense of self as a child. And whatever concept of self I think I am is negative. It's negative because I took or associated blame for why I didn't get the love that I needed. I just knew that I wasn't being nurtured or wasn't being loved. It was my fault. So whatever concept of self that I have, it's negative. So I'm carrying shame. But when people ask me, why can't I set a boundary? I often use the house analogy. Well, how do you lock a door to a house that you don't have? Or how do you put a gate or a fence around a house that you don't own or you don't know where it is, right? I think I need a fence, but I don't know where my house is, right? So having a self is like having a personal zip code. I know who I am, or a personal address. This is who I am. This is what I think. This is what I feel. And this is what I need. In order for me to set a boundary with you, I have to be able to know what I feel, trust that instinct, and then be able to love myself enough to verbalize, hey, that hurt, or I don't like when you said that, which takes tremendous self-confidence, because when I speak these words, there's a chance that my greatest fear will manifest, which is, you will abandon me, you will reject me, and I will feel all alone, and my worst fears will be confirmed. So codependents stay in relationships longer than they should. Codependents tend to be in one-way relationships. They tend to think that if I attract someone who needs me, they'll never leave me. I believe that love is conditional. So I have to be with someone I need to take care of, because I'm not enough to be loved by myself. So if you have this terrible problem that I can fix, right? You're married, but you're in a difficult marriage, but I'll be your girlfriend anyway, and I'll help you get divorced, and I'll hold your hand through all those rocky moments, and I'll stay alone 365 days in a year, or 365 nights out of the year, and I'll deal with seeing you once in a while, because I'm there to support you. My needs are not being met. Your needs are being met. So codependents approach relationships that way. It's all about the other person, in the hope that this other person will find value in them and never leave them. So how does someone who has that perception, or these subconscious patterns and beliefs, which become habitual patterns of behavior, how does that person set a boundary? It's almost impossible without self-awareness, without an awakening, to understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember hearing, I don't know, maybe a year ago, something around that, yeah, it's really going to be a challenge to set a boundary if you don't know who you are, if you don't have like self-esteem, self-value, if you don't love yourself, then why set a boundary?
I think that's where the self-esteem, the self-confidence comes from. The self-esteem, the self-confidence comes from setting the boundary and holding on to yourself and being proud of yourself, that in spite of the fact that your knees were shaking, right, you refused to tolerate that abuse any longer. And that person did leave you, or the smear campaign did come, but you loved and honored yourself enough so much that you wanted to represent something else for your children. So now you lay your head on the pillow at night and you develop self-confidence and self-esteem. Wow, I stepped through that fire. I stepped through the temptation of putting up with abuse, right? I didn't put up with the abuse. So setting the boundary is actually one of the ways that you can build self-confidence, self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. So here's a question. I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on this. So a lot of people who are codependent or have codependent tendencies have what I would call a compulsion, because that's like how it shows up for me, to rescue people, to fix people. And it really feels like this just very powerful need, so to speak, to do that. How do we let go of that compulsion and start like refocusing our energies on to ourselves?
I think it's important that we recognize that empathy is a beautiful quality. And I think it's important to recognize that the desire to help other people is also a beautiful quality. Imagine if no one cared about anybody else and no one wanted to help anybody. The old lady would be tripping in the street and everybody would be walking over her, or the old elderly man down the block. No one would be worried about him during a snowstorm, or our sister who is on her third child and, is not feeling well. We wouldn't make her a cup of soup. So I think the need to help, to really help other people, it goes awry when it's coming from a place of lack, when I'm doing it because I don't feel good enough. And that's again why I think it's so important to have this awakening, like, why am I doing what I'm doing thing happening, right? I noticed that in myself, like you, like I had to sit on my hands. I needed a clothespin to like shut my mouth, like shut up, I was constantly volunteering. It was just like, oh, can you just shut up? She asked for 35 cupcakes. Why did you make 200? Why are you 9 months pregnant cleaning out your friend's closet on your hands and your knees, and she's sipping coffee behind your back? Like, what's up? So when I started to realize, oh my God, Lisa, you're constantly seeking approval. First, I grieved the little girl inside of me who was taught to believe that she was selfish because she asked for an extra potato at dinner. Right. So it was like, these ways that this happens with children, it's just so ridiculously sad and innocuous. What do you want for Christmas? I'd like that. It figures, like, Mom, I can't see the blackboard. Oh, you only want glasses. am I not supposed to tell you? I'm in the third grade. I can't see the blackboard. I'm not supposed to tell you that I can't see the black. Well, you just want glasses. Like, I don't know what to think about that, So it becomes quite this mind-bending experience when you're a child, right? And so you feel shamed, you don't feel good enough. And you think that if you cater to people, then that means you're good enough. So you constantly cater. And it was a huge awakening for me to realize that I did that. Even though I didn't really, if I was honest with myself, there were a lot of things that I was doing just compulsively, like I didn't want to. I remember when I was in therapy and my psychotherapist, I was taking care, or I had taken care of my sister-in-law who had cancer. And she stopped talking to me for 7 years before she was diagnosed. And when she got diagnosed, I got a phone call. But I have a nursing background. And I just thought, no problem, I'm there 100%, And my therapist said, who did you do that for? Did you do it for you? Did you do it for them? Did you feel pressured to do it? Did you want to do it? And there was a big part of me that wanted to do it. This was a young woman battling cancer with 2 small children. But his point was, you just ignored that for 7 years. She turned her head when she walked past your house. Like, did you even think about, wait a minute, do I really want to help someone who's been, I didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it, And so I think it's important that we acknowledge that it's a wonderful thing to have empathy. I would never want someone to not have empathy. But I think that you also have to know that the more empathy you have, the more of a target you are for a psychopath. Because you will be the person, you have to know this about yourself, because you're the person making excuses for the psychopathic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
He had a bad childhood. He's an alcoholic. He had a drug addict for a mother. You're making all these excuses because you're slipping into their skin and you're not taking a moment. Whoa, wait a minute. How is this affecting me? So I think it's a wonderful thing to want to help people and want to be of service to other people. But I think you have to check yourself first. Why am I doing it? And am I doing this thing at the expense of myself? And when that happens, that's when you've moved into dangerous waters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. And it also, like, checking ourselves, because one of the things we were chatting about before we hopped on today is like the need to take care of or rescue something, but doing it, in my experience, I've been doing it for myself because I wanted that approval, because I wanted that love from outside of me to be reflected back, and recognizing that, oh my God, that's why I was doing that.
AVAIYA has changed my life.
AVAIYA has made me the woman I am today.
AVAIYA is my home.
AVAIYA is personal freedom.
AVAIYA is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about AVAIYA.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, AVAIYA, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at AVAIYA is what the world needs.